So this video is a tutorial on how you can debug your robotics projects using CircuitPython boards and Python for robotics. There's something called a traceback error, and this video will walk you through some of the most common traceback errors that might exist in your robot and how you can go about solving some of those problems in your code. So for this, I have my Metro Express board plugged into my computer, but again, any CircuitPython board will work. And then I'm currently loaded up on my code.py file on my CircuitPy drive. There is a cooperative tutorial running through this in the link down below. I suggest you do that so that you can copy and paste the code that I'm going to give you for this to be able to help you out. So there's a couple different error types that we're going to run into. When you get a traceback error, it's going to, one, give you an error type. What kind of error is actually going to exist? It's going to, two, give you the file that caused the error and the line of code that caused the error. Then three, it's going to give you a description for a base kind of instruction as to what it might be. So let's go into the debugging practice number one, task number one, and let's copy and paste that code in. Now, if I were to save this and open up my serial port, I should get a traceback error. When I come to my standard outline, it says traceback, most recent call last, in the file code.py, so that means I'm in my code.py file, line 3. And my syntax error is invalid syntax. So if I look on this line here, I'm going to think, well, it says line 3, but I don't actually have line 3. So typically, if there's a syntax error, that means on the line itself or one line above it actually has something wrong. And you can probably notice that if I were to click over here to look at this parentheses, it highlights that one of my parentheses is missing. So if I were to close that parentheses off and save it, and I'm going to have to get out of my REPL here, so I'm going to Control D and save it one more time. I should now have welcome to CircuitPython, and this line is missing something. So now I have corrected my error. Nice thing about MooEditor, if I click on parentheses, I can see that I have the opening parenthesis and the closing parenthesis. Missing a parenthesis is super common in Python for why you might come up with a syntax error. Another problem with running that you typically run into with a syntax error is to say, while true, indented in, save it over. This is also going to throw a syntax error, likely on line 2. Because I've got invalid syntax. At the end of my conditional statement, I have forgot to put a colon. I'm not going to save this. This is going to cause some overflow issues because I'm not actually doing any pausing. But missing colons and missing parentheses are really common when it comes up to invalid syntax. Let's move on to task number 2. If I were to save this over to my serial port, I'm going to get a different error this time. This time, it's going to be on file code.py line 3 in module. And I have a name error, name animal is not defined. So if I look at my code here, I have a variable called animal. And actually, if I double click it, it should highlight all sections of that. And if you notice here, instead of typing animal, I typed animal by accident. So if I save this over, I now should have tiger as my printing output. So if you get an error that says is not defined, typically if you double click on it, you can see where it's highlighted. If it hasn't highlighted any other variables, you probably haven't defined it yet. Or you made a typo. That's also super, super common. Happens to me all the time. So let's move on to task number 3. I have print total, num1 is equal to 5, num2 is equal to 5, total is equal to num1 plus num2. You can probably guess what the error is going to be here. It should show up on line number 1. Name total is not defined. So, but that's weird because I actually do have total defined here. This has to do with sequencing, one of the major programming concepts. We have sequencing, selection, and iteration. We've already talked about iteration before with forever loops. But sequencing is your order of events. You have to step 1, step 2, step 3. In this case, we're printing total, but we don't actually assign total until later. So if I were to take my print total and put it down below and save this now I should get a non-error because I'm assigning or I'm using total after I create it or assign it. And let's try it one more time here. I have task number 4. My age is 20. My new age is equal to age plus 5. And then I'm printing new age as a string, and then the variable new age. So let's save this over. And I have a error code called in line 2, unsupported types for add, string and int. So in Python, age is equal to the string 20, not the integer 20. And then I'm trying to add the string plus 5. Well, there's no way that I can make 20 and 5 together in 1. I just can't do that. So I need to either change my age around to make it an integer, or I need to turn it into an int. In this case, I'm going to just turn it into an integer like that. It's probably the simplest. There's other ways that you can do it, but for the purpose of this tutorial, this is the easiest. And now my new age is 25. Yeah. So hopefully practicing some of those syntax errors, things like name errors, things like syntax errors for missing parentheses or missing colons, things like undefined variables or name errors can help you with debugging your project, and just how useful using these traceback errors can be in helping solve your code. So best of luck with your next robotics project.